The meaning, I mean.
The meaning.
Yeah.
Well, the meaning.
What meaning?
Well, that's
what meaning
we do okay. In the neural network field, they talk about content addressable memory, and meaning by that, pretty much the same thing as associative memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't need to know the number in the catalog. You don't need to know the serial number. You just get there by desiring to get there. It's magic. Mm-hmm. And this is by meaning. It is what's the word I'm looking for? Poly or ambi-sensory. You know, it's like all senses and no senses. It's between all the senses. It's this, the medium of meaning. But this is nice because it gets exactly back to logarithms. Because the Weber-Fechner law of the stimulus intensity of any sense modality, what they call the 5 special senses, but also if we talk about memory, as I was, that would be the 6th sense of your own mind, mm-hmm. which is navigated and accessed by meaning, by feel, actually. Mm-hmm. Which gets to what I was saying yesterday, the nervous system speaks frequency. Because you do that map of frequency, it is like the map of the keyboard, if it's a keyboard musical instrument. Mm-hmm. Every octave is twice the frequency. Mm-hmm. You know, C above middle C, and then do it again. Mm-hmm. You know, so you go like, well, okay, we can call it A or whatever. Well, I'll just pretend. Yeah. If this is 1, that's 2, and then that's 4, even though linearly it's on the same scale. Mm-hmm. So it just looks like 1, except that one step was 4 times the size of that, you know, and so on and so on and so on. So it's log scaled, it's logarithmic. It's the snail house. Mm-hmm. And that's us on the inside. We're all that snail house.
Mm-hmm. So you just need to know how to play your keyboard, basically.
Yeah, but you want to play it by feeling, not with taking 10 or 20 years to become a virtuoso. No, you don't want to do that because we're already virtuosos in our own minds, or at least in our own minds. We're already.
I meant to play the music in your mind. To be harmonious.
Yeah, that's right. To be harmonious.
To learn how to play that keyboard.
Except we already know how to play that keyboard.
Yeah, except
because we're here.
Mm-hmm.
We do it. I mean, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. It's just to render it. This is a dream, you know, to have the entire environment be responsive. The entire environment has lived with me since my infancy. And it knows me as well as I know myself. And it's alacritous, it's ever present. It's like and if we can have that, we can have these little, you know, little fleets of fairies kind of looking after us. All our wishes. Yeah. Well, that would be lovely. That would be. And it's practically doable right now. Rohit and Adam, down in Silicon Valley, they had this goofy vision of this kind of intelligent dust. But I think more accurately said it would be like intelligent dust bunnies. Because they had these rodent-like qualities. Like they were little cute fuzzy animals that could just be broadcast through an environment and would like work miracles and make everything nice and good and smart.
They had that.
They had that, this kind of weird science fictional vision of things.
I see.
They wrote a paper about it, and I can't remember for the life of me what it's called. But it was, I mean, they wrote a scientific paper about this deranged vision that they had of intelligent dust bunnies that would heal everything and fix everything. And of course, you know, utopian, crazy thing. Yeah. So, as Richard Brautigan, the hippie poet, said, all watched over by machines of loving grace.
Yeah, I keep quoting that. I like it so much.
Yeah, but you know that piker over in England, Adam Curtis.
I like it more as just words, you know, just poetry, like machines with loving grace. I don't know what I like about it.
Well, you told me once that a machine is anything we can articulate. Anything we can describe clearly.
Right. I did say that.
You did.
And I thought of it myself.
You'd had that note of sincerity, yes. Yeah, you did. And it's correct. There was an AI pioneer, or a cybernetics guy.
No, thank you for reminding me of that, actually. It's important.
Yeah, there was a cybernetics pioneer, a Scottish bloke named Donald Mackay. There's actually a photograph of him. At the end of his life, he had some kind of cancer, some kind of brain cancer or something, so his head was shaved, and in the back of his head, he had studded a grid of electrodes sticking out of his head. Because he wanted to observe his own brain in action, in real time.
Yeah.
Which is just as insane as Gustav Fechner cutting a window in his eyeball.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, well, this really happened, Donald Mackay. But he had this great line about people who complain about, you know, the pie-in-the-sky quality of these fools who talk about artificial intelligence. He said, well, if you can show me in what way an artificial intelligence, under any definition of artificial intelligence, differs from biological intelligence,
yes.
if you can describe that clearly, you will just have described the path that allows us to simulate that biological intelligence.
Yeah.
It has to do with the clarity.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just saying what you said. This, if we can describe something clearly, we have described a machine. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind being a machine? That is being totally clear about yourself?
I am a machine, and I'm not entirely clear either. Well, it's the nature of, you were talking about the meaning. The meaning is transdimensional. It is so hyperdimensional, it's not funny. It just magics up dimensions as it needs them and forgets them just as conveniently, like poof, poof, poof.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why maybe it's taken so long to get clear about what it is that we do in the mind. But I think there is this the AI neural network enthusiasts are not entirely delusional. You know, when they described fairly clearly the requirements of an associative memory, they were spelled out, these requirements were spelled out by Aristotle, but not in the way of defining it as a machine, even though he took certain fundamental steps by defining logic as essentially mechanizable in principle, though he didn't say so. You know, but he articulated what propositional logic is.
Yes.
Yeah. Which for 2,000 years just stood as the crowning example of intellect.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't budge for 2,000 years.
Yeah, but that's just intellect, dude.
Yeah, that's right. But then meaning thing, if it's content addressable, then it's addressable by feel. That's the thing.
Can you explain?
Well,
How is something? Yeah, okay. It's content addressable by feel.
well, this gets to what we were talking about yesterday about volition. There was a lovely bit of work done about a robot called Murphy that learns by doing. And it was just, it was a typical robotic arm, you know. It had articulators in the joints with so many degrees of freedom, right? You know, this can go into, 20 positions, and this can go into so many positions in this direction and in this direction. And the shoulder can do this, But intrinsically that defines a fairly high dimensional space. It's this many positions times this, times this, times this, times this.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this, we call it three-dimensional space, that it's trying to learn how to put its hand into the right place.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually doesn't have 3 dimensions. It has a video camera, so it's 2-dimensional.
Yeah, but it probably translates algorithmically in 3 dimensions. So
Except it doesn't. It doesn't know how to do that. All it knows is when it does something right. So this is that feedback, that learning feedback.
Oh, okay.
So there's a bright light in its environment,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to get its hand to the bright light.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
Okay.
And so it just thrashes around like random. And eventually it winds up getting pretty close to the light, and then there's a little reward that goes, and it notices where the actuator settings are.
Yeah.
So now it's starting to create a map from 2-dimensional space to, I don't know how many, 13-dimensional space of its actuators, of its joint control. And it keeps thrashing around randomly, and more frequently it starts to get it right. And then it gets a little tricky because they move the bright light. And then it starts flailing around. But, just iterating this process, and it didn't take too long, this thing actually learned how to do that, and then learned how to play billiards, and so on and so forth. It could play ping pong.
Yeah, so that is what you would call by feel.
By feel. Yeah, it doesn't have to
know. It learned by feel.
It learned, and it doesn't even have to know what it knows in order to know it.
No.
Like, it doesn't have to have this pseudopod.
What just came to me is interesting, that it will learn by feel, verifying that feel, like by feel.
Yeah.
But then once it has mastered what it needs to learn, it doesn't need a feel anymore.
Well,
then it becomes automatic.
You could say so, but there's no reason to ever turn the learning off. So that if something unforeseen happens, if the environment changes, it can continue.
But let me just hold this thought,
right?
Because there is something interesting there. You know how we get bored with things?
Yeah.
Because we have learned something.
We have learned it.
And then our behavior becomes like that robot.
Yeah.
automatic.
Yes.
We respond to a situation automatically and becomes habitual, and it is the cause of all disease, if you know what I mean.
It's cause of a lot of trouble because people continue to do the reflex, rote-learned thing
right.
without realizing that things have changed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So we should always we should always have the feel engaged. And
How do you keep it fresh?
we should relate. I'm saying should.
You are.
But we should always be a student. Otherwise, you become a robot.
Well, I used to talk about the two morons.
Two morons.
Yeah, and then this. There's also the Laurel and Hardy theory of consciousness, and what was the other one? The two morons. It's the idiot in the basement and the moron upstairs. So these two roles. So one is that teacher of the robot, and one is the robot. So you have this learning robot, which is an idiot, because it just thrashes around like...
You're talking about the human.
I am talking. I'm talking about me in particular.
Okay.
But feel free to generalize to all humans. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the moron upstairs, who's very, very inarticulate. All I can say is, I like it, or I don't like it. It's like the moron's theory of art. I like it, or I don't like it. Right?
Yes.
But between the two of them, the idiot and the moron, suffice. They do everything. It's a complete package deal, right? And we're free to extrapolate and interpolate and say, okay, left brain, right brain, figure ground. We can, the whole thing kind of tumbles out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So.
In Buddhism, you would talk about Mara. Mara, you know Mara. So Mara would be the idiot.
The deceiver? She's a tricky, deceiving...
Yeah, well, the Mara is the idiot in your story.
Oh, in my story, yeah.
And you are the moron, you buy into Mara's tricks. It's never to your advantage. It just seems so. It's this immediate satisfaction.
Yeah.
And then...
Okay, I'm listening.
You don't agree, right?
You got that, eh? I'm glad you noticed that.
Of course you don't. In my next question will be, what do you have against Buddhists anyway?
It's not worth demonizing anything, Demonizing.
Yeah, no.
Mara's the demon.
No, it's... Who said so? That's your interpretation.
Oh, it's. I think it's standard Buddhism in 25 words or less kind of interpretation of Mara. Mara the deceiver, Mara the demon, Mara the bad.
Well, what
bad.
books do you read?
Well, I don't.
You don't. Well, that's.
But I
maybe
did.
You should.
But I did. But memory.
Yeah. No. That's.
But yeah. Okay. So, but you're privileged to have a very special flavor of Buddhism, being, something you can go far in, go further in. That's lucky. That's good fortune.
Okay, the moron and the idiot.
Moron and the idiot, yeah.
Yeah, so they work together to what end?
It's your question is about habituation. wasn't it? Or you were
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
getting deadened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about to say, before we got into morons and idiots, that there's this, what John Ruskin called the innocent eye.
Mm-hmm.
Or in Zen Buddhism, the beginner's mind,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Or is Jesus saying you must become his children,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to enter the kingdom of heaven?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this early 20th century American psychoanalyst named Trigant Barreau, very strange name.
Mm-hmm. If you would, okay.
Yeah, well, he just had this really nice. He differed from Freud's spin on things. Freud had this friend who was a novelist and a mystic, Romain Rolland. He used to be a big name.
Yeah,
Jean Christophe, you know,
yeah.
multi-volumes.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. He was a friend of both Gandhi and Stalin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not too many people can make that claim,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he was a friend of Freud, and they had this back and forth about mysticism. And what Freud, well, I don't know which one of them used the phrase first, but the oceanic feeling. And the idea is like, Freud's idea was its regression to the womb. You're in the amniotic bath inside your mother, and everything is, you're in paradise. There are no problems. Bliss, 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 bliss. Right? And then we are expelled from paradise, and it's terrible. You know, birth trauma. The world is harsh. That first breath just sears you. It's just, you know, so on and so on. And then there's whole dogmas about that. You know, you had primal scream therapy and so on and so forth. It was Trigant Barreau's idea that it's always there, it's always available.
Mm-hmm. How would you make it available to a robot? So if you have to, if you wanted to simulate it, well, the robot that you described to me, you know, how would you? Is it possible? You know, because we know this in some mysterious way. We know how to do Zen.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You know, and behave. We can make ourselves do that. But if you want to make a machine do that, how would you do it?
Well, you know, may I just say?
Huh?
Or you can finish that thought, but then I have a nice rejoinder to what you're saying.
Yeah. Can you make a machine of that? That's my question. Of what we're talking about.
Well, back in the day, back in 70s, early 80s, somewhere, there was a Japanese robotics researcher who wrote a book about, I forget what it was called, but the idea was that the robot is the Buddha already.
I had that idea. Actually.
Well, you know, the Ulipo had a good phrase for that. They called it plagiarism by anticipation, or something like that. I mean, it was your idea, but he had it first. But it was still your idea, right?
But what were...
Well, just this idea of that the robot is Buddha nature already. The robot has Buddha nature already.
I have this allergy towards that word.
Buddha nature or
Buddha
robot?
Nature. Buddha nature.
Oh, okay.
So don't use it.
Okay.
Okay.
The robot is the Buddha.
How? How?
Already, it is. That stone is a Buddha. That table is a Buddha. Right? That chair is a Buddha. My foot is a Buddha. Everything except me is a Buddha. I am the only benighted, I'm the only completely occluded asshole in the universe. I'm the only guy that doesn't get it. I'm always behind the 8-ball. I'm always the idiot, or the moron, whatever. You know, I'm the guy that doesn't get it.
Why?
I don't know. I think I'm cursed. Maybe that's what they mean by original sin. I mean, consciousness, right? Sometimes consciousness seems like a complete curse, because it is always one, you know, it's always a dollar short and a day shy, you know, it's always one step behind, it's always...
Consciousness is suffering.
It's a...
Suffering.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible, right. But the amniotic bliss, as Trigant Burrow was saying, the amniotic bliss of the oceanic feeling is always just... It's closer to thee than thy jugular. You know? As Rumi would say.
Yeah, do you know
as
how to
rumor has it.
Do you know the motion?
The motion?
Yes.
Which motion?
Yeah, can you do it?
I just did.
The bliss. Why aren't you blissed?
Well, the thing is, I am in bliss. I'm in complete bliss.
Yeah.
I'm so blissed out I can't even talk, right?
No.
Except, okay. That's being looked after by the other and far greater part of myself, right? Leaving this little picayune little steward to and flap the mouth parts. And, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, tell me now, what do you have against Buddhism? Is it just that you don't know enough, so you...
Buddhism?
Yeah.
Occasionally, I mean, it's one of the... When I was young, we used to watch Ed Sullivan Show, Sunday nights, 8 o'clock. And there were acts. Ed Sullivan Show kind of came out of vaudeville, came out of stage. He was a stage MC, you know, and he had his show, and then when television happened, they sort of transferred it to television. It was the first appearance of the Beatles on North American television, so... But he had these acts that would get invited back. One of them was like this little Italian mouse called Topo Gigio, and another one was these guys with these poles, like bamboo poles, with plates on them. And they would get the plates spinning on top of the poles, and then the thing that's exciting is to watch the guys running around the stage, keeping those things going. Keeping them going without the plates falling off and breaking.
Yeah.
It could never get enough of watching that, right? Well, Buddhism is one of the plates that spins and it wobbles. Occasionally I pay attention to it, you know. I go and give it a little... Maybe it's a bad analogy, but... Yeah, well, part of this logarithmic theory of the mind is that... Well, it's like the hyperbolic geometry portrayed in Escher circle limit. You know, you get your angels and your devils interlocking figures, and they're big at the center, and then each successive ring, there's more, you know, there's twice as many or 4 times as many angels and devils, until right at the perimeter, it's just like there's an infinite blur. So you can fit everything in there. As we do, sort of. I'm going to excuse myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do. But it always gets bigger than it is.